This is the last seen photo of Carlina White, who was just 19 days old when she vanished from her bed in the hospital. It was August 4th, 1987, in Manhattan. Joy White and Carl Tyson rushed their newborn, Carlina, to Harlem Hospital with a high fever. She was admitted for observation, and the doctor informed the parents that they would admit Carlina to the hospital overnight. Hearing this, Joy broke down in tears like any mother would, but a nurse standing nearby tried to comfort her. She said, "The baby don't cry for you, you cry for the baby." This came off as a bit odd. She seemed to be saying that the baby was fine and it was her mother, Joy, who needed help. It came off as a weird way to console a mother. However, her words and the fact that she wasn't wearing a name tag on her nurse uniform also raised suspicion. Eventually, the couple left Harlem Hospital together at around 12:30 a.m. so Joy could stop by her mother's apartment to pick up a few things. Carl dropped her off, then returned home and went to sleep. Around the same time, the nurses at the hospital had a shift change. At 3:40 a.m., hospital staff discovered that baby Carlina was missing. Her IV had been carefully removed, and whoever took her had slipped out without being noticed. Just after 6 a.m., Carlina's father received a phone call from the police. A detective informed him that Carlina had been taken. When Carl rushed over, he arrived to find police cars lined up outside and detectives crowding the hallways. Inside, Joy, mother of Carlina, was sobbing, and soon Carl broke down as well. The hospital claimed Carlina had been checked every 5 minutes, which led police to believe the kidnapper had been watching closely and timed the abduction perfectly. Many suspected an inside job or a desperate woman, possibly with a failed pregnancy, posing as a nurse. Joy had already suspected the nurse who tried to console her. She was trying to get rid of me so she could take my baby away from me. Speculation spread fast, and details began to emerge that for several months, a strange woman had been seen at the hospital. She passed herself off as a nurse, and the others believed her. She was also the same woman who interacted with the parents of Carlina. Later, a security guard told them that he had seen someone matching the woman's description leave the hospital around 3:30 a.m. However, the guard said that he didn't see a baby with her, but he believed that the missing infant was inside her clothing. Now, fast forwarding to 2005, 18 years later, Najadra Nance, aka Nettie, a woman living in Atlanta with her mother Ann Petway, who was brought up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, just 45 miles away from the family of Carlina White, and later moved to Atlanta. During her upbringing, she started suspecting Ann Petway. Just like in a family, the siblings and the parents resemble each other, or their traits match. There were no signs of such things between Nettie and her mother. In 2005, when Nettie was pregnant, she asked her mother, Ann, for her birth certificate so she could claim health insurance. However, Ann, on the other hand, had no official documents for Nettie. She gave her a false birth certificate, and when Nettie tried to use it, the officials revealed that the certificate was forged. Later that evening, when Nettie confronted Ann about the fake documents, Petway broke down in tears and confessed she was not her actual mother. However, she lied to her by saying that Nettie, who was actually Carlina, was given to Ann by a woman who was an addict. Moving on to 2011, Nettie started searching through official sites such as the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, where the images of an infant 19-day-old baby girl were posted, and by looking at her, she could tell that it was hers. She contacted the department, and the man on the other end then uses a photo aging software for baby Carlina, which matches the image of Nettie and confirms that she was Carlina White, missing since 1987, and that's how she was able to find her real parents. A movie has also been made on her story called Abducted. Ann's reason for kidnapping Carlina was that she desperately wanted a baby, but she could have gone to an orphanage and legally adopted a child. Instead, she took the baby away from her real family, which ruined so many lives altogether. Ann Petway, who was 50 years old at the time, was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Carlina White was found after 24 years, and it was one of the longest known gaps in an abduction in which the victim was reunited with their family. Well, at least it was until 2024. This is a picture of Luis Armando Albino with his brother, where they were reunited after 70 years. Luis's family had just moved from Puerto Rico to California, hoping for a better life, but things were tough. Their mother, Antonia, worked long hours just so she could provide for her 6 kids. On February 21st, 1951, 6-year-old Luis Armando Albino was playing with his big brother Roger, who was 10 years old at the time, in Jefferson Square Park. That afternoon, while they were playing, a woman in her 30s came up to them. She had a green bandana tied over her hair and started talking to Luis in Spanish. She seemed friendly early and promised him candy if he went with her. Luis, young and naive, said yes. However, Roger, who was also just 10 years old, didn't like this at all. He followed behind them for a bit, and something felt off. He turned around and ran home to tell an adult, but by then it was already too late. Luis's family panicked, and they called the police right away, and a search began immediately. But at first, the police weren't sure Roger was telling the truth. Some thought Luis might have wandered off and fallen into the bay. The Coast Guard even searched the waters near the square, but no matter how many times they asked, Roger never changed his story. He kept saying the same thing. A woman took his brother. Antonia, their mother, refused to give up. Every single day she went to the police station hoping for news, but each time they had nothing. Still, she believed her son was out there, somewhere. Luis would be 21 now, but they hoped that maybe a military test, an ID check, or something related to adulthood might help bring him back into the system. They tried everything. Antonia even made several trips to Puerto Rico, believing deep down that Luis might have been taken there, but still nothing showed up. However, officer at the time stated that this is one of those rare cases where a child goes missing and never turns up dead or alive. Decades went by, and then in 2020, something unexpected happened. Luis's niece, Alida Elquin, took a DNA test just out of curiosity. It showed a 22% match with a man Alida had never heard of before. The more she looked, the more she began to wonder, could this be the missing uncle her family had talked about for so long? She sent him a message, but there was no reply. In early 2024, Elquin tried again, this time with photos. She took her evidence to the Oakland Police Department's Missing Persons Unit. Soon after, the FBI and California Department of Justice got involved and began looking into her lead. They found that the man was living on the East Coast and had worked as a firefighter and had served 2 tours in Vietnam with the Marine Corps. That week, news sources reported that a DNA test confirmed what Elquin had suspected all along. He was the same man missing for more than 70 years now, Luis Armando Albino. On June 24th, the same year, Luis flew to California to reunite with his family, including his brother Roger, and just like this image portrays, the moment was full of joy. Andrea Michelle Reyes, 23-month-old Andrea, vanished almost overnight from her father's home in New Haven. There was no forced entry, no signs of a struggle, just a child gone. And the person responsible wasn't a stranger either. Little Andrea lived with her father, Carlos Reyes, a local teacher in New Haven, but her mother, Rosa Tenorio, had lost her custody rights. However, on October 5th, 1999, during a scheduled visit, Rosa decided to take Andrea with her and vanished completely. When Reyes went missing, New Haven police launched an investigation and eventually asked help from the FBI and other agencies. The theory at the time was that Rosa Tenorio, the girl's non-custodial parent, abducted the girl because she was upset the girl's father had remarried. Therefore, a felony warrant was issued for Tenorio's arrest, and a missing poster was also published for Andrea. Early leads even suggested that Andrea may have been taken to Puebla, Mexico, a city of more than 1.5 million people. And surely it wasn't easy to find one single person with no contact in a city with so many people. But her father didn't lose hope. He and his new wife, Lucia, made many visits to Mexico, but nothing was obtained. Her age-progressed photos were also circulated on how she may have looked during her different stages in life, but with no leads, the case slowly became inactive. Until 2023, Detective Keelan Nivikov took up the investigation once more, and through interviews and search warrants, determined Reyes was most likely living in Puebla, the same city they had suspected. And with the help of these interviews, they could finally contact Reyes and confirm that it was the same 2-year-old little girl who was taken from him. A DNA test was conducted, which confirmed the father-daughter relation, and after nearly 25 years of silence and missing posters, Andrea Reyes was finally found, not through luck, but because her father didn't give up. This is the last seen photo of Kamiya Mobley, only a few hours old when she was abducted from her mother's hospital room in Florida. This story is so similar to the Carlina White story that we talked about before that people can easily mistake it as the same person. It was July 10th, 1998. Gloria Williams had just finished her shift at the Charleston nursing home, still wearing her nurse uniform, but instead of heading home, she took a different turn. As she kept driving, Gloria started to feel heavy. She was overwhelmed, heartbroken, and completely lost because she had just lost custody of her 2 elementary school-aged sons to their father, and she was stuck in a relationship filled with fear, and she had quietly suffered a miscarriage, carrying the weight of everything all by herself. Gloria drove alone for almost 4 hours until she reached Jacksonville. She got off the highway near a large hospital, back then known as University Medical Center. She parked her car car and walked inside, and she made her way to the nursery and stood quietly, watching the newborn babies. At around 10:30 a.m., she started walking down a hallway. She stopped at room 328. Inside, Kamiya Mobley was alone. Kamiya had given birth to a healthy baby girl just a few hours before Gloria walked in, pretending to be a nurse, but she stayed with the young mother for hours, talking to her, helping her, and acting like a hospital staff person. Kamiya was only 16. She looked young and unsure about how she would raise a baby, and the baby's father was in jail for a small charge. Gloria watched as Kamiya held the baby close, cuddling her gently, but in that moment, Gloria saw an opportunity. She thought maybe this baby could fix things. Maybe the little girl would make her boyfriend happy, and maybe he'd stop hurting her. So when Kamiya was tired and worn out, she asked Gloria to put the baby in the bassinet. Gloria picked her up, but she never planned to bring her back. Gloria did this by telling a lie to the young mother. All new babies need to have their temperature checked. I'll have to take her out of the room soon. Just as she was getting ready to leave, Velma Aiken, the baby's paternal grandmother, walked in. Gloria quickly spoke up, saying they had to run a quick test and would bring the baby back in about 15 minutes. Then she walked out of the room. Velma stood still as something didn't feel right. She looked at Kamiya and said, "How is she a nurse and got a pocketbook on her shoulder? You don't think that lady is trying to take your baby?" The question hung in the air. Kamiya, now unsure, asked if a nurse had taken her baby for a temperature check. The hospital staff asked her to hold on while she waited. When the person came back, they said, "No, your baby is not here." Right there, Kamiya broke down because she realized that her newborn Kamiya had been abducted. This is the original missing poster of Kamiya issued in 1998 with the sketch of her abductor. However, the case remained unresolved for nearly 2 decades. Gloria had put Kamiya into a bag, walked out of the hospital, and headed to her car. She drove back to Ruffin, a small town near Walterboro, and her parents lived just across the street. But when she pulled into the driveway, her mother saw her and asked, "What is this?" And Gloria replied, "My baby." Apparently, she told them she had gone into labor while at work in Charleston. She claimed she rushed to the emergency room and gave birth suddenly, but Gloria had been gone overnight, and it was strange to them that she hadn't called, but not impossible to believe. A photo taken in August 1998 of Gloria Williams with Kamiya Mobley, who she named Alexis Monigo. But back in Jacksonville, Kamiya walked out of the hospital in pain and empty-handed. Instead of comfort, she and Kamiya's father were hit with questions, police interrogations, and whispers in the streets. Strangers accused them of lying, while some even said they sold their baby because Kamiya was just a teenager. Years went by. Kamiya was called Lexi. She grew up in the small town of Walterboro, surrounded by a close and loving family. She went to school and lived a normal life, and through it all, she formed a deep bond with the woman who raised her, aka Gloria. Meanwhile, Gloria's life began to settle. She left her ruthless boyfriend, got her sons back, and later remarried. But everything changed when Alexis turned 16, when she got her first job and needed her social security number. Because that's when Gloria broke down and said, "I have something to tell you." Gloria confessed everything. She even offered to turn herself in, but Alexis said no. For a while, they kept the secret hidden among them, until a year and a half later in January 2017. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received 2 tips linking Gloria to the Florida kidnapping. The court quickly ordered 2 DNA tests. Then, at 4:50 a.m., police showed up at the house. Gloria's husband had already left for work, and Alexis was spending the night at a friend's place. This time, Gloria was completely alone. Almost 20 years after she took Kamiya, Gloria pleaded guilty and received a sentence for 18 years. On the other hand, Kamiya had just reunited with her biological family. She loved them, but she also loved Gloria, the woman who raised her and gave her a life full of love and comfort, even if that life was built on a lie.